Are we ready, Augie?
We are ready.
Would everybody please rise? Recite the pledge with me. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We do have a complete quorum. Jeremy, do you have anything you would like to talk about?
I don't have a report for you yet. Had a little dental issue and I didn't feel like working on it for a week, so I'll get that to you before your next meeting though. Call wise, we're still around the 60 number for the month of February, so things are going well. But other than that, I don't know if you have any questions, concerns.
Well, I just thought this, since we're talking to you, it'd be a good time. How is the committee doing on this project, on renewal and so forth?
Russ and I talked a little bit about it. Who else was on it? You. Do you have any concerns on any areas on the contract? Yours is fairly cut and dry.
No, I personally don't have any issues.
Okay.
When is the contract up? End of this year?
Middle of the year, June, July.
Okay, couple months, okay.
So if we're gonna bid it, a letter needs to be sent out
Pretty quick.
on behalf of the board, I think, what, within 60 days or 90 days? So,
Pretty soon.
pretty soon.
Is it June 1st, June 30th, or?
I was thinking it's June 30th, but I,
So through April, May, June,
Yeah.
July 13th.
July 3rd.
So that letter's gotta go out within the month.
I would like to see what you think about having the terms of it, rather than straight 6 years,
It's 5.
have it, it's 5. Is the other 6 years? It's 5
They're
also.
both 5. I mean, that's what they are right now.
Okay.
I'm not-
No, it was
Not-
mine was 4 years and 4 months, because to get on the same fiscal cycle.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, all right, thank you.
Let's see if anybody has any objections to having them both come due at the same time.
When's yours?
First,
Sarah's?
Ours
June,
is up in
that's,
October, because I
Of
don't.
this year?
No,
Yeah.
10/31/28.
28, yeah, 28, October 31st, and that was to get on the same fiscal year
Right.
budget cycle as the board's budget cycle, or the county's budget cycle.
of course, our budget cycle is November 30th.
What's that
I
now?
think you were wanting to know
Before the
bid.
budget, yes.
Gotcha.
Okay, I
How
got
much
you,
to-
sorry. So, whatever the committee's pleasure is, recommend to us, and we need to get it on the agenda at the next meeting. We need to get it to Philip so he can review it, and maybe make out the letter, or you rough out a letter that we did. Augie probably has that letter that we sent to Horizon last time, and we can just rewrite that for Jeremy's firm, and then go from there,
Okay.
if that's okay. So,
So basically, you're saying, just, we take this, change the dates, and,
well, you three review it. I
Okay.
mean, make sure that Lisa's, you haven't reviewed it yet, have you?
I've read it, yes.
Oh, okay. Do you have
We have
any?
not
we haven't
discussed.
asked, we need to get together now.
Yes, so that you can,
Maybe this, if you want to do it pretty quick, probably this week sometime.
I don't know, I didn't remember from.
and I won't take it.
Yeah, sometime in the next week or two, if you guys can get together and
Right.
talk about it. and-
Maybe you could get a rough draft to us by next, Augie can probably get that done and get it to us. I don't mean to speak for you, Augie, but, well, it's gonna be tough for you because you've got the election coming up a week from tomorrow.
I'm gonna tell you that this week is extremely busy, but if it's a matter of me sending the last letter to Philip, I can do that easy enough.
Okay. just get typed up?
I don't know whether the
Seems like
attorney's office or state's attorney's office did it, you know, through Mark, or how it was done, but
You wouldn't have that, then would you?
Alright, possibly, but I wouldn't count on it.
Okay. I'm just
I'm
trying to
not for
figure
sure, but
out.
we did use a template from a nearby county.
well, regardless, we have a letter, and we just need to, and we have the agreement, so we can just work with those two documents and go from there instead of reinventing the wheel.
That's kind of what I'm trying to avoid, okay.
All right, any other questions of Jeremy? I kinda hijacked his report, but we need to get on that. Okay, Philip, would you like to go next, so we, in case you wanna take off, or are you okay?
I'm here, so I have.
You're here?
Nothing else scheduled.
All right. So, you guys have got a letter from Philip in your package. I think Augie put one in there, didn't you?
Yes.
Is this reference 911?
911 letters, yes. You would explain where we're at and what you're suggesting and
Yes.
what we need to do or not do and all that.
So if you've reviewed the memorandum that I prepared, there, at the February 23rd, 2026, 911 board meeting, they unanimously voted to withhold payment to the county for the 911 dispatch services. I drafted a letter after speaking with Chairman Boyd regarding asking the 911 board for a formal explanation or just simply payment of the amount due, and then the 911 board provided a response letter on March 4th. And were they provided with the response letter from the 911 board? Is that in your guys' packets?
They got it earlier. I know, Carl, you got it earlier. Yeah,
I sent that out.
yeah.
I just read it about 3 hours ago, first I've seen the
You mean
letter.
the original one?
From who?
Okay, the one from their board, or from their board to us originally.
I just read it 3 hours ago.
Okay, well, whatever. All right.
I went and talked to Jesse. I was there 5 minutes. I did not read the whole, I just
Okay.
scanned a little bit of it, so I didn't know what all was in it, so today.
Then you, I thought you
Yes, sir, I
said,
sent it all out, and I think Carl, I don't remember if you came and picked it up or I mailed it, but.
I just read it 3 hours ago.
well,
First I read the whole thing.
got it. Okay, well, there is a letter from the state's attorney to us that says, Dear County Board, and then there should be a letter that will be acting upon. Did we make a copy of that, Augie?
Oh, Augie did not have copies of it, I was,
Oh, okay.
this is already
Yeah.
11th hour draft.
Okay, well, go
Okay,
ahead,
I
Al.
was gonna say, I didn't
What
get it.
gets this back into, you continue.
Okay, well, the 911 board's letter essentially said that the reason we withheld payment was based on personnel complaints, comparison between Andrew County's arrangement, essentially it being unfavorable to the 911 board compared to other similarly situated counties such as Douglas County, and then asserted discretionary authority under statute, that they don't necessarily have to pay it, but that they have the discretion to pay it, and the board voted to not pay it. And that payment amount was an increased quarterly payment of $48,000 some odd dollars. And that was an increase from about, I think the payments previously were around $33,000 or so. And the payment that has been withheld was the quarterly payment for the last quarter of 2025. So
So it wasn't on a payment for this year, it was a payment for last year. And so as a result, the county has had to accrue that on the books instead of being able to say that it's been received. As far as I can tell from reviewing the letter, I would like to, one, I have a response letter to send to the 911 board, and I will be attending their next 911 board meeting. And also ask that Council Chairman Boyd attend the 911 board meeting as well, to show that we are working towards an agreement. This is what will be on the agenda to approve, be sent out on Wednesday, if it's approved by the board. Okay, got one for you.
Thank you.
So essentially, they break down, like I said, they bring it mostly on personal complaints within the Edgar County Sheriff's Office dispatch division, not believing that the sheriff has done an adequate job disciplining or controlling the environment in dispatch. And they believe that that gave them the authority essentially to withhold the payment, and they also point to the fact that there's not an actual, that we know of, at least an intergovernmental agreement between the Edgar County Board and the Edgar County 911 Board regarding these payments. We had done agreements in the past. The last one that was signed was in 2024, which merely noted that there would be payments made for a specific quarter in 2024, and then that further payments could be subject to negotiation. Doesn't necessarily, in my opinion, terminate, but would just simply meant that the payment amounts could be renegotiated each quarter. As far as what my letter goes through, well, let me start with the memorandum that you guys had first. So what I'm suggesting that we do is separate the issues. The personnel and leadership concerns belong to the sheriff as the employer of the telecommunicators. The 911 board can't lawfully withhold payments for services already rendered as leverage over internal Edgar County Sheriff's Office HR matters. And there's been problems. There are things that are happening to correct these issues. I've spoken to, I always forget his name, Jeff, Rick, the attorney that
Stewart.
Rick Stewart, that handles the labor matters. I didn't speak to him today, but I spoke to Chief Deputy Jenkins, and he advised me of what the last information that he had, and so they conducted at least, or completed at least one investigation regarding an employee, and then they're working towards other complaints regarding that same individual. So, as far as the 911 board's letter, essentially is asking for us to do certain things. And those things are, we want a corrective action addressing long-standing personnel issues within the dispatch division, written or documented assurance from dispatch personnel indicating improved working conditions and confidence in leadership, and confirmation from the 911 director that personnel and operational complaints have been appropriately addressed, and then negotiation of a formal intergovernmental agreement between the 911 board and the county board. So I believe that the main issue really is the negotiation of a formal intergovernmental agreement between the 911 board and county board. As far as I know, there's not one in place. They provided a Douglas County example that discussed this as an example of the way that they had theirs set up. and then the payments that Douglas County 911 makes to their Douglas County Board.
Do they have the money or just don't wanna pay it?
That I don't know.
I just wondered, what do you think, Jeff? Do they have the money to pay it?
They
Yes.
Okay, just wondered.
There's 800,000 in their checking account.
And I might point out that they have been paying up to, they paid quarter 1, 2, and 3. They passed a resolution at the board meeting increasing the 33,000 to 49,800. And that's what they paid on the third quarter. And then they decided 2 months and almost 3 months after the final quarter had ended, not to pay us. I think that characterizes it, so you understand, so.
And so my letter goes through the arguments that I believe we should make to the 911 board and suggest a path forward, maybe a committee formed to negotiate an intergovernmental agreement. And I plan to discuss this with the 911 board, at least after the meeting, regarding the payment for the last quarter of 2025.
My understanding, I might add, if the board meeting had been today, Stuart was planning on coming.
Okay.
But I think that he would come next Monday. And that might be helpful for him to explain to their board what's happening. Okay? I mean, communications is not gonna kill us.
Correct, right.
Communications has killed us. So we, we need to increase communications. Would you agree with that, Philip?
I would agree, except I believe that lack of communication skills.
Well, that's what I mean. That's what I mean.
So we're actually paying dispatchers out of our money because
Yes.
we're not getting paid through the 911 board.
They have never been, that I'm aware
It's
of.
I believe it's a reimbursement for a proportionate amount of their duties that are
Correct.
911-based calls.
Services that we provide.
We
Right.
provide the dispatching services, and then our dispatchers provide a certain percentage of 911 calls.
That was all determined by the call volume, that's how we come up with it. And then several years ago, they wanted a second dispatcher on the evening shift, also, 4 to 12 shift. So because of that, we hired an extra person and we've provided that to them. And, I pointed out, back when we did it, you requested this, then it's your cost, it's not the county's cost, because you're requesting this, because the county doesn't need it to handle our calls. So now, but they're frustrated because of things, and especially because of the issues that they brought to the attention of the sheriff, and they haven't been addressed. And, they're slowly being addressed, but I think they were just
We
frustrated.
should be able to sit down and work that out.
Well, yeah,
Committee should,
and I was at the meeting when the vote was taken, it was all just like at the last minute, that, well, this is what we want to do, and they talked for a minute or two, and we voted, and I regret my vote, because they owe it. It was something that was done last fall, and if there's a problem, then we need to sit down,
Right.
the two groups, and talk about it
Right.
and get it resolved at some way, somehow. But the 911 board owes the money, in my opinion. And I will state that specifically at the next meeting. And I'll make a motion, but whether they'll go along with it or not. But I think it'd be helpful if we could have some discussion, with the attorneys to,
Can I ask, did the sheriff attend any of these
No.
meetings?
that's part of the problem. He
So we
doesn't.
have an issue where the public's safety is being put in jeopardy by personnel issues that have not been dealt with for the better part of 8 months. And they continue to be ongoing, and that board is stewards of taxpayer dollars,
Mhm.
so.
I understand the frustration with the union and the labor stuff. I don't know, I was only brought into this towards just really last month towards the end of last month. So I'm not up to speed as to everything that's been going on, but I do know that there's steps being taken now, and things just tend to move slowly with, unfortunately, with through union representation and our labor attorney and getting the investigations done, and then also following up with any discipline that needs to be done.
I
Has
would
there
like,
been a recommendation for like a paid administrative leave pending investigation? Are we continuing
that's
to
being
put
investigated.
continuing to put the public at risk with this individual delaying responsive calls?
I don't know to where they are. I know the investigation's completed. I don't know what Rick's going to recommend to the sheriff.
Didn't he already recommend?
On the November 3rd, what was the first one? It was November 3rd?
That got delayed
Right.
due to Deputy Neal's death.
Right. I would remind everybody that we need to protect everybody's rights. We didn't do a real good job of that, how many years ago? 12?
Close to 12 or more.
The county moved inappropriately, and we wound up having to pay out several hundreds of thousands of dollars to people that were reinstated or that we owed back fees to and damages. So, you know, Rick is trying to, and so is Philip, make sure that whatever we do is appropriate and that we don't wind up in that situation either. I mean, it's safety, you know, and
So I think we've relayed on to the sheriff that, and Rick, that this needs to move along. I mean, you gotta do it the right way, you know, everybody has their rights, but it's a priority to get something done, whatever that may be. We don't know what that's gonna be, but it's a priority to get something done.
Philip and I have both been very, what would you say, proactive?
Yes.
Even before, but now more so with Philip on board, helping to push this forward.
It's a very strange management situation.
It is.
You've got people that work for you that you're not in charge of. And that's a very difficult position to put someone in. The sheriff's in charge, is the employer of the 911 dispatchers, correct?
The sheriff's dispatchers, they're not 911 dispatchers, they're sheriff's dispatchers.
That's
They're not affiliated with 911.
And that's not unique to our county. Douglas County has the same
Right.
model, and it's actually noted in their memorandum of understanding. The sheriff is the employee of the dispatchers, or he is the employer of the dispatchers, and that's the people that are under him, so they're under his charge. You know, the 911 board only has one employee currently, and that would be the 911 director. It could be different under a different model if it was potentially a joint board. That could potentially change things, but that would be a whole process that I believe if there's the impetus for them to work towards that we can start doing that.
But that requires a working relationship between the 911 director and the sheriff, and that has historically proven to be difficult, not just with this 911 director, but with previous in general too.
And previous sheriffs too.
Correct, yes.
And I'm not sure to what extent they actually need, the sheriff doesn't have to be on board with a joint 911 board. It's not his, the public safety answering point can be done by the county and any municipalities that want to join into it. It's not the sheriff's responsibility to have a public safety answering point aside from his own dispatchers.
You have in this letter suggested that they make a payment by the 14th, is that correct?
I think it says 14th, that was not
16th's the next meeting.
I'm suggesting payment by the end of the
Next,
month.
a week
End of
from
the
today.
month, okay.
Yeah.
And you stated that although they mentioned that they can't be sued, this could be handled in another way if they refuse to pay?
I'm not sure if you're talking about from their letter or from my letter.
Well, you suggested to me that, because I'd asked you about they said that they couldn't be sued in their letter to us.
It couldn't be sued personally, but the board could be, it would be a mandamus suit or a declaratory judgment suit. If that would be the worst case scenario.
Right. Okay. And we hope we don't have to do that.
No, and I did not,
We
their
didn't
letter
mention that
actually,
in there.
their letter mentions it, and I didn't mention it in my initial letter. I didn't threaten suit, I didn't talk about personal liability or anything like that. I'm not sure where it came from in their letter, but I believe that all we want is to work collaboratively towards this, and we just want to receive the payment that was due for 2020 in 2025, and then work together going forward and get an intergovernmental agreement that works for all parties.
And an understanding that we're working too. We suffer the same problems they are suffering
Yes,
in other ways. So I just don't want them blaming us for it when we're trying to do our best. And then it seems like we're getting punished.
Well, without having seen their letter, I don't think that they're blaming the county board. I think it was directed towards the sheriff and his lack of management oversight over his dispatchers.
That's true. But by withholding the money, the county not receiving money to, for the reimbursement of money we've already put out in the last budget year.
Well, the discussion though, so from what I understood, centered on us, putting pressure on us to put pressure on the situation, in a way. So,
They're trying to get somebody's attention, and like I said, the person you're trying to get attention to, I don't know that you're gonna get that person's attention.
I'll get you guys copies before you leave of their letter, just so you can see it, to see if you feel that's necessary. I think it gives a good point of reference for.
that's fine.
Memorandum, and then also the.
I don't have any, I did have it, I guess, but
So there, you may have any other questions? Of this right now?
the board needs to come up with a committee also. It shouldn't probably be just one person, but the state's attorney should be part of it. At least two people, I would guess, one
This is-
from the board.
This is to develop an intergovernmental agreement.
Yes. So, what do you need to make your thoughts, think about that, and we need to make that decision by Wednesday.
So who all do you anticipate being on this committee?
Him for
So,
sure.
right, state's attorney, representation from the board, the sheriff and 911 board representation.
I think you're saying us from the Edgar County Board
Just the Edgar County Board.
and the state's attorney.
Yes.
To get together and talk about our response to them.
Right.
Based on all the
And
information that
the
we got.
intergovernmental agreement will be, and their reimbursement will be between the 911 board and these 7 people sitting here.
Okay.
Right.
Okay, so, I mean, if 911 wants to include Taylor, that would be their choice. And if the sheriff wants to somehow get involved, I mean, he can be. But I think we can't order him to be on a committee. So, the way I understand it,
I would agree.
I would do it.
you would?
I would do it.
Okay. All right, well, so far we've got one volunteer and then we'll go from there. Okay? Thank you for your work. I appreciate it. You've made me feel better several times. This thing is really weighed heavy on some of us.
If I can always cause some problems, calling you guys. bring you bad news.
That's okay. That's okay. We've got to deal with these things. And if we deal with it correctly, it could set the stage for good relationships and maybe a better setup for the future.
Yeah.
And we need to start thinking about combined dispatch, and maybe we could make some headway there and some understandings about that. Because I literally think eventually, we should be paying a service fee to 911 for the dispatchers.
It should have been worked out before they did this, right?
Well,
That's my point. They should have sat down and worked it out before they made this.
regardless of that fact,
I know.
that's possible.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe we should have done something different, I don't know.
Yeah.
But what we're presented with is what we got in front of us. So we'll move forward, and we want a good working relationship with the 911 board, with Taylor, with the dispatchers, everybody. So,
Yeah, and I'm trying to work to not be adversarial in
Right.
doing this. So I think that this is just a miscommunication, and it's just, we just need to have a talk, and then we can work collaboratively going forward.
thank you, Philip.
I'll get you guys copies of, what letters do you guys have copies of? You have a copy of the,
Well, they have the letter
The
use.
memo and the one that you're draft.
okay, I will provide the original letter with their response, and then their response to that letter as well to you guys.
I think in our email, we got your original letter
Yeah.
that you sent
Okay.
to the board, but I didn't see their response.
Okay.
I don't know if anybody else did.
See, we just got that a couple of days ago, so,
Okay.
what, the 4th?
Yes.
Okay. So, I'm bad, I should have,
No, that's
Yes, go
okay,
ahead,
no, yeah, knowing that it's just came on the 4th, I understand.
thank you all. So, let's move on. Russ, do you have anything, sir? Dan, do you have a brief report?
A little bit. Andrew called yesterday, there was a break-in at the shelter again. One dog was taken. The dog that was taken had been quarantined for biting. Police are investigating. I would not like to go in more detail now until I find out more about it. So right now, the police are investigating, have some idea of maybe who it is, but I can't say much right now, so. But we're working on it. That's the second time that it's been broken into. So we're planning on getting more cameras, and we want to put the cameras down a little bit eye level, so you get a better idea of what the people look like. The cameras now are high, so it's kind of hard to get an idea of what the, how big the people are and what they look like. It was 2 people, so.
They also did some damage.
Yes, they've done some damage. So police are investigating. Amby thinks she knows who it is, but it's got to be proven first.
Well, if you
That's
think
what-
about it,
That's
I'm
what we're
thinking
at.
about it.
Yeah,
it's not too
Dog's
hard to
gone.
guess. At any rate,
that's where we're at.
regardless. Thank you, Dan. Andy?
Russ called me and said there's another light out up on the courthouse. But, so we got, I just told Ray today to get a hold, we got Jim Bennett replaced it last time. He said he'd get a hold of him, have him fix it. As far as fixing the hands on the clock, I don't know, I've gotta do some research. There aren't very many people do it. The company that we had do it, Smith Clock and Bell Tower, are out of business. So there's a guy out of, I don't know if you recall, a guy out of, it's Verdon Clock Company. I think he's out of Ohio. Remember, we got a bid for him to put the clocks in, it was like 4 times what we paid the Smith clock, but he's in business and Smith's out, so I don't know. There aren't very many people do that stuff, so I'll see if I can surf the net some night and see if I can find somebody. I don't know how else you go about finding, but I don't know that
Unless you've got another courthouse that has clocks that you could ID and go, What are you doing when you get a problem?
Almost all of them got them. All right, yeah. I found, I mean, I called this one guy, he actually, I think he ended up calling me, because he'd sold it. I don't know. I'll see what I can find out. I'll get it fixed.
Okay. Anything else? Carl?
No.
Same?
Yeah. So at our last meeting, you had asked Dawn to come and you sent us home with fiscal year 23, 4, 5, and 6 budgets.
Thanks, Jeremy.
And so I have some questions. I don't know if you, because it's lengthy, if you want me to review them here, or if you want me to meet with you and or Dawn at a different time, but I knew that we were almost a quarter of the way through the fiscal year, and there were some funds that we were already sitting at greater than 33%. We should have been under 25%.
Of the new one?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we can go through them.
Okay, so, and again, some of this is just education for me.
Okay.
So, in looking at, fiscal year 20, actual 25, budget 25 compared to budget 26.
Okay, you're going back then. I thought you were gonna go over the one,
That we just got.
No. On the state income tax, it looks like we were budgeted for 1.035 and we fell short at 998. But then we budgeted again for 1.1 million, so we increased 7%. If we fell short on revenue, why did we budget ahead?
because it does continue to increase every year. We're projecting, and
And looking at,
I gotta find the rate.
I'm on page 3 of 19, on the one that had 23 through 25 on it. We
I
had
had it
some
here earlier.
interest and dividend from an Illinois fund, about a third of the way down the page. It started out at 62,000, dropped to 37,000, dropped all the way down to 8,000, but we budgeted for 55,000. And then this year, we budgeted for $5,000, so we went from budgeting 55,000 down to 5,000. What is that interest dividend out of that Illinois fund? What is that revenue that comes in?
That would be some of our funds, like the ARPA funds that have been depleted now, and the bond funds.
Okay, so the interest should have been going down on that as we were
Right.
using out of that
Right,
fund. Okay.
and you'll notice there was another, and I can't remember which one, but there was another interest fund that went up instead of down,
Okay,
and then Don started rolling them into some of the original monies, so that they would grow.
okay.
Okay.
I noticed like in, the state's attorney fee collections, that has decreased year over year, but we budgeted for a 2.5% increase. That is fund, 4300.
I wish I could find, oh, here it is. What page are you on?
On the,
3?
it looks like through, 2.
2?
Mhm. 7,000, 4,000, 3,000, and then we budgeted 4,000. So we did an increase, and I'm just asking, like,
What's the number now?
it's a 4320, 4320.
Yes, I
State's
got it.
attorney fee collection. We had budgeted 5,000 in 2025, we budgeted 4,000 in 2026, which is still a 2.5% increase over what we collected. And it's decreased year over year. I'm asking how those budgetary numbers get set.
I set them.
And looking at
The board sets them, so that means that, you know, we need more peer review. Okay?
Okay. And looking at the overall, okay, here's a good example. On the 2026 budget, if you'll look at page 7, it is the state's attorney's budget. I'm not taking any, I just have questions, so. We have Fund 5040, which is state's attorney part-time. We have already paid 30% of that out in the first quarter of this year. So, in looking at the year previous, we had budgeted 0 and they paid out 20,000. But we only budgeted 10,000.
Well, we had the state's attorney added a individual during mid-year, is that right?
For the part-time?
Well,
I believe that was probably for an expert witness that was required to counter the defense expert witness in that fire case in Vermillion where the baby and her father died.
Mhm.
We didn't handle the case, it was handled by the special prosecution unit from the appellate prosecutors. And I believe that was we didn't have the money from anywhere, and I talked to Jeff, and we had to pay the expert witness, and that was where I just took it out of, knowing there was no money in it, but
So where do you, how do you set the budget for that, not knowing what your caseload for the year is going to be? Did this $10,000 just, like, oh, we spent 20,000 last year, we hope to spend half as less, is that? how
no,
you
that would
arrived at
be
number?
just for things like Harold Royster, where they consult on things, where we were using for the ordinance things. I believe we paid for things that were for the initial drafting, some of the ordinances and things came from my office's budget. And we didn't have, there was nothing for really set in there. And so the 10,000 would be for any incidentals for expert witnesses or potentially outside legal firms that would be assisting. And what year was that?
Last year. Last year, and then this year, we're already sitting at 43% of that budget being used, that line item in your budget being used.
And we had another Harold Royster bill that came through. And we also had the District 95 debacle last year as well that we had to, I went to Luke and Stackrider and they consulted on helping me figure out where the money was missing, and then it turned out there was no missing money.
the state's attorney's budget, the court, or circuit court budget, and the public defender, all of those offices, it's a guess, it's a crapshoot.
You never know what's
And,
gonna come
you
up.
know, a couple of years ago, we had, you weren't here, but we had like $40,000 or $50,000 in expert testimony and $10,000 budgeted. And there's nothing we can do about that.
No, and I understand, I want you to be fully aware, like, I'm not critiquing, I'm just trying to understand,
Well, that's
like,
what I'm trying.
looking at the budgets, like, last year, this is just gonna be one example, the state's attorney's budget was 6% over. When we look at the line item of sheriff's deputies, we were 122% over. When we look at correctional officers, we were 110% over.
Right.
So every department can't have a line item that every line item goes over. I get the fact that if we use out of one bucket, we might have to pull from another bucket to balance and equal. But I just wanna make sure, like, as we're looking at 2026 and trying to be proactive, we need to look at where we are percentage-wise out of some of those funds.
That's why you're gonna get this every month.
Right, well, yeah, but we don't have any control over accountability on some of those line items either, so.
No, and that's what I was trying to say. I'm not, we could dump $100,000 in each one of those line items and, we couldn't make the budget work.
In our county IT part-time, they're 186,000, or 186% over
Yeah.
last year.
You know why? A bunch of the bills came due from last year and they got shoved into this year.
So that's just, I mean, it's a
I've
little
already
bit
talked to them.
concerning.
Yeah, I know. Go through this. That's why I'm grateful to share all this stuff, okay? Serious. Stuff worries me all the time.
I won't keep going on, but I have
Oh, we can
gads
sit
of
down and
pages
with
of
treasurers.
questions on where line
Building
items
and
are.
grounds is another one where we've got
Yeah.
issues. And we spent another 11 grand this month, and we have 80 grand in there, and let's see, I may not even be looking at the right month. At any rate, we're well over, and so, and I know we have to maintain our buildings, so what do? And then we've got the power bills, which, I know we're gonna work through winter, but still, it's still gonna be tough.
Well, like, so on the one that you gave us today, on page 14,
Okay, I'm gonna figure out which,
it says February 28th at the top of it, period, ending February
February.
28th.
February 28th.
On page 14,
There's a newer one than that, isn't there?
no, that's the end of the month, that's first quarter.
But it was printed out today.
Oh, yeah, it was printed today.
Oh,
but
okay.
it would be first of Q1. If you go down to, expenses and line item
What page? I'm sorry.
14. Fund 9110, the regional superintendent of schools.
That's
We're
all.
at 48.7% payout and we're only in Q1.
There's two bills.
So they only bill us 2 times. Okay, see, that's
Oh, that's fine.
the questions that like I said, I knew this would be a learning,
To some degree, payroll, you can kind of, because since they're every 2 weeks payroll goes out, you can kind of see a trend, but some of these, they're just things come up maybe at the first of the year and you spend it
100% of it. And I
either-
kind of get that from like the
Yeah,
phone
right.
system, like I get that, okay, we're at almost 100%. But since this is technically, you guys are December, January, February, we've had 3 months, so this is quarter 1 of your fiscal year.
Right.
We ought to be at 25% in the majority of controllable expenses.
Yeah.
Of controllable
Right.
expenses, we ought to be at 25%.
Pretty close.
And there's some of them that we're not.
On page 14, for example, 040-8020, medical insurance, we've actually made 4 payments, even though this is three months. So we only have, that'll put us almost exactly where we need to be,
Which one was that, Jeff? I'm sorry.
80-20.
Employee medical
Okay,
insurance
so that
administration.
is,
See, we'll pay, the way we
you
pay it,
paid one more than what,
yeah,
yeah,
we're
okay.
always a month ahead, so. But I mean, those are things that everybody needs to know.
Yeah, that's why
In
I'm
the
asking,
future.
it's learning for me.
Yes, because
And every department head gets a report every month.
some ask for them, some don't. I think Don makes them available to those.
We have to ask for them. I
Yeah.
do, I don't receive them.
And so when we have department heads, is this, I'm assuming that this is some of the stuff that it gets reviewed or
No,
no?
we do not. Not to say that we can't, but no, we have not.
Okay.
Maybe we should make them available, and the ones that don't already have them, ask for them, give them to them, so and tell them to
Say, this
review
is
it.
what they look like.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and let's say Augie's. Augie has elections, so his election
It'll
amount,
be a lot in the beginning, but
Sure.
it averaged out last
Right.
year, just,
and then he has like, he's got a fee for his machines that was on the books for this month, right? In March.
I have, there are license payments.
Right,
Yeah,
yeah. So, I mean, those are one-time,
yeah, annual.
yeah,
we have a lot of departments that we cannot predict what is gonna happen. The state's attorney, for example,
right.
the sheriff's department, we can't predict emergencies when they're gonna occur. The coroner, we cannot predict when deaths are going to occur and who's gonna need an autopsy. So we know going into the budgeting season that we have to budget for some unpredictables and unknowns. We just have to figure out where we can control the controllables. So that was kind of what I was,
The one thing we do have that's, let's go back to page 3, I think.
on this month's,
Yes.
okay.
We have $940,000 on the very, at 4999. That's transfer in.
Okay.
That's kind of our stopgap. That's why when people go, well, you need to start sharing more of the tax, the sales, or the
Safety tax.
safety tax. That's our only place where we can get additional money to make this work. Okay? And if we give that up, that's a problem.
When you say you can give it up, what do you mean by that?
Well, give them some of it.
Oh,
As far as the safety tax goes, there's a misperception as to who's entitled to it.
Right.
Under the county's resolution, the only service right now is really entitled to would be emergency service, which is not the 911 board. They are not, even though it's 911, they themselves are not an emergency service. That refers specifically to generally first responders. And as far as the way the resolution is currently worded, that is, it's specifically for the jail and for the sheriff's department to use for the construction of the jail, renovation of the jail. I believe that could be changed later on, but that's what it's designated for right now. The statute sets out very specific purposes that the safety tax money can be used for. I know it's a sticking point with Chief Rogers is always complaining about it, and there's no legal authority that money could ever be provided to anybody else. If the city wanted to do their own safety tax, they could, but they can't get the county safety tax money. That money is for the county and for the county departments that it's designated for by statute.
When you
I've
come
tried
to
to-
the 911 meeting, can you explain that to them? 'Cause
I will, I
they don't-
hadn't seen a copy of it, because I know it's been a sticking point,
Right.
it always comes up.
Right.
And so I asked for a copy of it after the last meeting, and I reviewed it, and I reviewed the statute that governs it, and the language to have a better understanding of who can actually get the money, and to try and explain why they can't get it.
Yep.
Great. And we've tried to explain that to them.
But if we did joint dispatch, and that's run out of the sheriff's department because those are sheriff's employee, or county employees managed by the sheriff, that typically, that helps city police because they no longer have to have dispatchers.
In the sense that
Incentive.
money's fungible, yes.
Yeah.
And right now, that fund has grown. Okay? And it has grown. So it does give us some flexibility. The other thing that is gonna be issue, and it was back when we passed the levy, and that was we didn't go to max on our levy,
Correct.
all right?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, and I'm not in favor that we do, I'm just trying to understand, the budgeting process and how line items or funds are set in looking at historical years.
yes,
I'm
okay? And some years are up and some years are down.
Yeah.
And like the county clerk fees have been, I have missed them the last few years, and they've been historically high. So, you know, I'm wrong on some fees and I'm right on others, so.
Well, then there was that one year that somebody, I won't mention names, sold a bunch of land.
Yeah.
We had a big windfall of money that came in because of the tax stamps, correct?
Yeah, 50-some thousand bucks, as I recall,
Yeah, it was a big deal.
That was a big deal.
yeah,
So,
on top of what we normally give up.
The other thing that, are you saying?
I was just gonna say, can you explain again, because you have to tell me many times, that we can, you can move money around within your budget, that the bottom line is what matters, but if you go over, is it by department if you go over, or is it by the county? If the county goes over by X amount, X percent, then you're in big trouble.
There's two different categories. Departments that are, we give an elected official a budget. For example, let's just say Augie's, because he's first on the list. We're giving him $278,629. He is free within that amount of money to spend it how he sees fit, is my understanding. In other words, he can spend more on election and less on personnel, he can do all that. But he is restricted to that amount of money. Now, what our recourse is, I'm not aware other than going to court. We've always used the idea that we work together and we discuss it. And, you know, that's what we've done, right, Augie?
That's right.
But that doesn't always work with all departments. There are other departments that don't have elected officials, i.e., HESDA, the dog, or the shelter, the
Supervisor assessment.
that we can say, no, okay? And that they're not necessarily in control of their own budget, but I think as a matter of course, and the way we want to manage and work with people, we would allow them to do within that parameter of what they're given, what they want to do. But if they exceed that, then we need to call them in and say, hey, look, if we're like through the 4 months, and we should be looking at 33% of the year, and somebody's at 43%, we can call them in and ask them what's going on. I mean, even elected officials, we can call in and ask them what their plan is, I would assume, right?
Yeah, I mean, as far as the budget's really the only control that the county board has over elected officials. They can't manage anything else within the way they're really running their office, but they control the purse strings. I don't know what that looks like in terms of if someone's just overspending. I don't know how that's done, and necessarily to enjoin them from doing it, if it would be a injunction, or if it would be just a matter of they're not gonna provide the money they're asking for, which would open at least the elected official, potentially their office, and essentially the county up to some type of claim if it's some outstanding payment, but.
It'd be like the 911 board not paying us.
Yeah.
I mean, if somebody encumbers us for our goodwill, we need to pay our bills. So So I guess it boils down to the cooperation and the way we approach everybody and,
Keeping track of.
right.
I don't think that 100, you correct me, I don't think that 100% answered Lisa's question though.
Okay.
Because if we get to the end of the year and we are over budget by a specific amount, is there an issue? Is there a problem? Do we get a bad credit rating? Like, what is the?
We could, yes. We have a surplus that we're running,
Mhm.
and I can't tell you what it is right now. It's,
Not much.
It's not, it's like $30,000, $25,000.
no, I'm talking about there's more than that in the system from over the years. There's
That
like,
one single sheet, you know, that he gives us every
Uh-huh.
month, it has all the list of all that.
The funds.
Yeah.
but
Okay.
even that, I mean, there's roughly, when you figure the accruals and everything else, there's roughly 1.1 million in surplus, okay? So we need to keep an eye on that. The bonding company wants us to keep at least $1 million in surplus, okay? Now, if we get to the end of the year and we've got $200,000, or let's not get wild, say it's 76,000, we can transfer more money in, okay?
Mhm.
But we can transfer it in out of the safety tax, if we're not crazy about it, okay?
So we need to keep $1 million in there to keep our bonds.
Yes.
Okay.
Does that better?
That helps me with that.
Now, that may change, but that's what we're operating on right now. And to get to that point, we had a deal where we went through here a couple months ago, and we used Ben Lucan, and we used our old bonding company. They came together with me, and we all met and worked up a report, answered their questions, and they were satisfied, okay? So you do that about once every 2 years. But we can't let it get away from us, because then there's no going back. Well,
It wasn't that way when you got on board.
no. How bad was it, Carl? I don't even remember.
$750,000 in debt.
Quite a bit.
So we've had a $1.7 million swing,
Yeah.
but, and we've gotten a lot done over that time period too, so.
The
At
other-
any rate,
The other question I had was, thank you, Augie, for sending, the emails with the county board updates. There was a PowerPoint today on the changes, from UCCI on the FOIA. So who is the county's FOIA officer? Augie is. And you've been trained and you're current on your annual training?
Yeah, so let me explain that.
Okay.
By default, it comes into me, but what we've done over the years, for example, when I get a FOIA for the sheriff's department, I move that on to the sheriff's department. I don't get involved in that. If I get a FOIA that involves certain financial reports, I can't develop those, that's not my deal. Don does. And sometimes he'll send them on, sometimes he'll send them back to me to send on to the FOIA requester. A lot of them I can answer because they're just not real detailed,
Okay.
thank God.
Okay.
one more thing to add to that. Sometimes when we get them, we also send them down to Philip
Yes, thank you.
or
Jeff.
Lauren,
Yeah.
so that they can look it over, so we approach it appropriately.
From a legal standpoint.
Yes, I mean,
Well, I think that's the thing, is it looked like from that PowerPoint, we have 5 days.
yeah,
You have
Address.
5 days unless you request an extension.
And so somebody is staying on top of that and being, because obviously you get vacation, you get time away. We don't expect that you check your email on your time away, I mean, you do, but you shouldn't. So is there a backup, is there a fail-safe, if Augie isn't here, do we have FOIA officers, will that automatically default to Philip, would it?
It depends on if they're, I think theoretically, each department is required to have a FOIA officer. Normally that means it's the department head. And so normally if it's a specific FOIA request, like I get them that come into the state's attorney's office, I don't think go to Augie at all. People are sending them directly to me. like you would, and I think, Vicky also gets them directly to her a lot of times too. So there's not people have generally, I think for time, it's 5 business days, so it really counts to about a week
You
total.
get the weekend.
Yeah, so, and the first day doesn't count, so it would be on Monday, starts on Tuesday, and then you have really until next, Monday essentially to answer. And then if you need more time, then people are generally, in my experience, very receptive to just acknowledging that you need more time to respond. And occasionally we get ones that go somewhere that they believe it's the correct address, but it's go to the wrong email address, and then no one ever ends up getting the FOIA request, and someone tries to file a lawsuit against us. And then in those cases, we have to deal with the lawsuit. And if that's the issue where it's just gone to the wrong email address, which has happened multiple times, then we get it dismissed, but they start going through the steps and hiring an attorney.
So a couple things caught my attention there. You said it's understood that most department heads are their own FOIA, should have their own FOIA officer, or should be in charge of that. Is that something that they know, and should that be discussed at department head? Committee?
Probably. Mention every once in a while.
I mean, if
so
somebody
they-
gets a FOIA request, I mean, I imagine they start, they don't know what they're doing, or they don't have any, experience with FOIA, I think that they would normally call my office to ask what to do.
And Dina, for example, got one here a while back. She was concerned, I don't know whether she talked to you, but I know she talked to Augie.
And then the second question I had was, is it on our county's website who our FOIA officer is, or where to direct FOIA requests?
We have our FOIA request form
Form on there,
on there.
and that goes to the appropriate person, it's routed to you, or?
It goes to me,
Okay.
yeah, it goes to me.
The other thing is, when Carla and I first got on the board, we were swamped with FOIA requests. There's a lot of requests for information, but because we don't have secrets, kind of that attitude, we send them the information, don't we, Augie? I mean, we
Absolutely.
don't, we're not trying to,
No,
unless it has some legal
right.
detail. You know, somebody wants to see our budget, we send it to them.
And while I 100% agree and respect that, the majority of this board is gonna turn over very soon, and I just need it to be on camera where that is, how do you go about that?
Oh, I agree, I'm just,
Or in order to be able to reference and refer back to that, because I personally do not know what that is. And I don't know if all department heads understand, and even if they change over or their leadership changes over, how that is going to work or where that lives. And as
You
sitting
address
on
that
the,
at the next meeting.
yeah, as sitting on that committee, I would like to be able to say, like, this is what the county's stance on this is, so.
and I understand what you're asking. I'm just saying that we don't get as many FOIAs because we just give the information out. And everybody, the only one that we have problems with is the sheriff's office. He tends to be a little bit more prickly about sharing information.
Those were my only two things, was the budget and the FOIA officer, thank you.
Zoning webinar is Friday, and I'm gonna participate in that, that's from UCCI. But there's a data center meeting, Monday afternoon, and it's a face-to-face on March 30th, and I am unable to attend.
And what's that? I mean, just information?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I will tell you, data centers was the topic of conversation at our kitchen table today, because my son had been to North Indianapolis this last weekend, and talking about the impact of the area up around Lebanon.
Lebanon, I
Yeah.
saw that.
And one of them, one business bought 900 acres and another business bought 1,500 acres. And the one that is gonna be a data center, talking about them digging their own wells and whether or not they're gonna generate their own power. And there's just so much that I would never have thought about. The housing has also has skyrocketed. The $1,500 lease, a month lease has gone to $2,200, yeah. And, so, you know, we think it doesn't affect us, and I certainly hope it never does, but if someone was able to attend, that would be great. She's pretty good, about sending PowerPoints out afterwards, but it's never as good as going.
Is that
UCCI one, and it's in Springfield. I just can't make it. Department head elected official meeting. Samantha had asked if we could change the date or the time on that, and I'm certainly open to it. You know, we started back up with those about a year ago, at department head's request. And so I said I would facilitate, and so I made it according to what worked for my schedule and kind of coordinated with everybody else. And that's how we came up with 10 o'clock on the third Wednesday, because I was already down here. But we could, and I don't think people wanted it a lot earlier, as I recall, but maybe it could be at 9 o'clock.
That would be good.
The other thing would be is if we could make it, the other option logically would be the first, or the Monday of the month when we have this session, if we did it at 3 o'clock. So those are a couple of options. Now, we have it coming up on the 18th, so I don't know.
But they don't want it on the 18th?
No, they do.
Okay.
So I'm just saying, that's the next one that Augie and I have talked about. We haven't sent anything out yet.
Correct.
So do we want to just arbitrarily change it to 9 o'clock? Do we want to leave this one the way it is? I have no opinion.
And that's the day after election?
Yeah, I won't be there, but,
And
maybe,
there's nothing that says that we have to have one. I don't have anything pressing on the agenda. We could,
see, this is the way it's been in my tenure. We started those up, and it was well attended for, months. But occasionally you get someone who can't make it for whatever reason, and that's legitimate. But as time goes on, less and less show up. And then you start to run out of things to talk about. And so, then what we did is we called a meeting, just as we needed it, just to let the various department heads know what was going on, especially at the board level. I know, Carl, you've been to a lot of them, with me, Jeff, you have.
They've been pretty well attended the last few.
Yeah, now, lately, they have, yes.
and so we talked about how often did they want them, and we were gonna have them every quarter, and then they said they wanted them every other month. So,
Yeah.
that's,
And we've got a few things we've identified here today that we need to do.
And I did talk with Nancy, and she said that there's a lot of additional features that we're not using in Paycom that could be beneficial for the
and she does
departments.
always have a section of that agenda.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
so she had some things that she wanted to kind of address.
Yeah.
I mean, I'll just say it, I would love it for it to be quarterly, and I would love for it to be before this meeting at like 3 o'clock. But I could also do a 9 a.m. one. If it is the 18th at 10, I will not be able to attend.
Yeah, and I'll be out of the office picking up the election equipment that day, so, but you can still schedule it, I'll post it, but it's whatever you wanna do.
When's the last one we had?
We haven't had one since November,
Oh.
December.
We canceled last month
Okay.
Yeah.
for whatever
Well, since we're
reason.
talking, there was some, I don't know, maybe we shouldn't talk, but if this is a good time to meet. What,
This time,
yes, no. Study
the
session,
study session time.
yeah, 4:30 and 5 o'clock. We did that in anticipation that there would be people from the public, interested people, and we haven't had any yet. They've all been our people in the county. And,
I agree, but I also, like, that we just heard that in November, and my personal opinion is I think you give something a try for 12 months, and then you revisit it. So my suggestion would be to keep it at this, and then revisit it with the new board and say, hey,
And that-
this is, you know, we,
Absolutely.
in 12 months, we only had 3 public attend and an after hours. Should we look at removing, moving that?
We have to keep it this for a year. Because
Well-
we
we
posted that.
posted it, but
It could be changed.
it could be
Could be
changed.
changed,
We
okay.
give sufficient notice to the public.
I suggest though that maybe we change it from here back out to the highway office.
That's-
Still at 5
Yes.
o'clock, go to the highway office.
4:30 and 5, yes.
Okay. And for that, for what reason, Jeff, I'm curious?
Just because it'd be
You don't have to pay the guy to stay here and watch the courthouse for
two of
till
us.
6:30.
Yep.
7.
And it's just more comfortable out there. We don't have the crew. I've heard several people say that they're on the board that said that they're not that comfortable here. So I'm responding to that.
But if we did, if we did the department head meeting before that, would that be, I've not gone to them, this is something relying on you, that be given us like travel time to go from, where, I'm assuming over the government one?
We just have it at 3 and it ends at 4 and we come out here, or come out there, or,
Yeah, we have big enough turnout, we have to have it at the government building.
yeah,
And then 1 hour is sufficient?
Yeah,
Okay.
it is now.
Okay.
yeah.
The first few that we had were longer, but,
Hour takes care of it.
yeah.
And if something was gonna be special, it was gonna be 2 hours, we could start it at 2, you know?
So when do you wanna meet next Wednesday? 9, 10, 3?
Do we want to meet next Wednesday, or do we meet that second Monday in April?
Or the second Monday in March. I'm
This
sorry.
is-
I'm sorry, the second meeting, the second,
That would be
oh, okay, sorry. I'm getting confused.
I mean, there isn't anything really pressing, is there?
I don't have anything
So
to say.
let's just wait till April.
Yeah, let's just wait till April.
So can you send that out, just a notice to save the date in Augie?
Do we have a date?
Whatever.
We need to have a calendar in here like we used to.
Yeah.
It looks like it would be April 6th.
Yeah.
Yep.
April 6th at 3.
3 o'clock at the government center.
Okay. Save the date.
What else did I have on my list? Payroll committee, Nancy and Kate and I met, this afternoon. And Jeff, she had shared with you as well. I liked it. She created a formal document about what a committee is and what the purpose would be, which was good to have it formalized. So, we can talk about that some more. Jeff and I, and Nancy, and Paycom rep meet next on the 25th. So Samantha, so here, two things. If Samantha joins us, then that becomes a meeting that has to be posted, correct?
Yes.
Because that would be
Yes.
free. Okay, so do you want Samantha to join us, or do you want it to wait and formalize our payroll committee after that?
Don't have a problem with her joining it. I mean, we can post, there's no big deal to post another committee.
It doesn't matter to me, it would, the Paycom rep meetings are good. Are you available on the 25th at 9 AM? It's 9 to 11 is when it's scheduled. Okay, well then we just won't have to worry
Just
about
write
it.
down that one, yep.
Okay,
All right, so after that though, we'll,
Okay.
and of course, we'll know a little bit more too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you'll know, yeah.
okay. I didn't get anywhere with setting up a tax informational meeting, and I kind of over that. If somebody really wanted me to, I know where, but no.
What are we talking about?
Informational for the public about taxes
Oh.
and all of that.
I
All
don't think-
taxing bodies together in one room.
You're not gonna get that, I don't think
I
you're
don't
gonna.
think so either. The only other two things I had was, one was for my knowledge, and I should probably know the answer, and I apologize. What was the total cost of our public hearing on the solar?
So far,
Gosh, you're supposed to know that.
I know.
No.
The last thing, I think this was like 40,000.
Yeah, it
yeah,
was,
42.
I think it was 42. Yeah, I think that sounds right.
42?
That
What it
sounds
cost us as a county?
No, it gets reimbursed.
Oh, it does get reimbursed, okay.
Yeah.
It comes out of the fund that they have to pay us upfront.
Okay.
So it wasn't, I just couldn't remember,
How
and
much
didn't
it
know
was
if we'd gotten everything,
reimbursed back.
yeah.
Have you heard anything from them since
Mhm.
passed that?
No?
I know at some point, I don't remember how long they said they'll come back with a building permit.
I would have thought they would. No, I have not had any calls from anybody for the last couple of weeks. Although the Vermillion County in Illinois wind farm up by me is just, it's getting going. The other thing is Augie, I have requests for maps by voting precinct. I know you have provided them to the Republican Committee on County Board map,
Yeah.
but do you have one for the precincts?
So, yes, I do. I had some developed a few years back, and the initial was free. And then they wanted, I don't know, 3, 4, 5,000 to develop them further. I said, thanks, I'll just keep the free ones. And, but yes, I can print that off.
I think the
They-
requests are on the website.
Yeah, and, well, thank you, and I was just getting ready to say that. And there, also, we have it used to be very interactive, but Ross changed it, but we do have those, there is something
Because I
on the
hadn't seen that,
website.
must have needed to search harder.
Yeah, it's under my page, under elections,
Okay.
the polling places, and a pin will pop up, and it'll show you where all the, well,
I was gonna say, the precinct map and the district map isn't there, but there was a request as if they could be there.
okay. Yeah, there's a voting center, a polling place map, there is. I'll get you the precinct map.
Thank you.
That,
And I think that's all I have.
Solar permitting, $58,390.
Is what that cost us, that hearing,
Yeah,
that we're
total,
asking,
everything. Yeah.
that, okay, that they're asking for, that will get reimbursed back?
We already
Well, we
have.
already have, they, They
gave
have
us
to pay us
$250,000.
before we get there. When they submit their application, they submit the check.
And I know the state's attorney earlier mentioned about in some of his part-time, it was High Oyster, I assume that was for solar.
It was for the ordinances that
Ordinances.
was drafted initially.
Right, because that could not be charged to the
Okay.
developer.
It's a disability.
Yeah,
The developer just paid for the period portion.
Yeah, we're trying to keep that separate.
Separate, okay,
So that when it comes time, if we owe them some money
right,
or whatever.
yeah.
well, and so the other thing I had that Augie printed out for me was the UCCI Leadership Academy, and I know you saw that, but here's a nice copy. And I'll just save this for the folks that come on board. It would be great, it is worthwhile. When I did it, it was during COVID. It was, but I talked to folks that have gone to the face-to-face ones and they've gotten a lot out of it, so, I'll just save that. So thank you, Augie.
Is there anything that we should have a rep going to for the extension? I'm just asking. I mean, didn't we talk about that we don't have anybody that they have a meeting that they, from time to time?
They do, they usually do webinars.
Okay.
I'll listen every once in a while. Usually what I do is I register for it and then I get the PowerPoint afterwards.
Okay.
They tend to be very cheerleaderish. Whatever the topic is, they tend to get people who are all about it.
Okay. All right, solid waste. You have some solid waste information. You got the Regional Planning Commission sent us volume 1 and volume 2. It covers 6 counties. And Augie, do you have more you want to say about it, or just?
Yeah, just a little more background. Up until 2014, we had a solid waste committee, but there was never any activity. And so we don't have that committee anymore. And then out of the blue, I get an email from the state that says, you need to send us your updated plan every 5 years, and the 5 years ends soon. So then I don't know how I found it, but I found contact, and the regional planning people sent me this volume 1 and 2, and it is, I just gave you the table of contents. Together, those pages are probably, well, I know one's 485, that's volume 1. Volume 2 is not quite that large, but it's too large for me to email because our system cannot handle that. So, but that's just to give you an idea of what this multi-county plan is that we're a part of, the table of contents, give you an idea. And then there was a webinar, Zoom meeting, and that is the PowerPoint presentation from that meeting, which I could not attend that. That's a board level committee. So I just wanted to put that out in front of you that there's, I'm not say activity, but the regional planning group of multi-county puts that together.
So are they putting one together for us?
Well, we've got a plan,
Okay,
and we're part of the bigger plan. We're a county, well, you see it there, Coles, Clark, Cumberland, Shelby, Moultrie, Edgar. But to my knowledge, since I've been here, we haven't done anything towards that, but not necessarily anybody's asked us, other than recycling.
Yes.
Coles County would host a recycling day, if you will. And then, but other than that, I'm just putting it out there for you to do with it whatever you wanna do with it, but for those that didn't know, yes, we're part of a regional plan.
And so the regional people put something together and we even rubber stamp it?
Yeah, I've never seen anything like that. This was developed years ago.
So this is the most current from 1996?
Yeah, whatever is there, I just, that was, you know, it's,
So does this have to do with recycling and things, or is that just one?
that was one component.
One portion of
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, I don't know what all is in there, if that's, transfer station, landfill, recycling. That's what it is basically about. I wanted to present that to you so that the board is aware, and I certainly didn't want us to fall into an area that we don't wanna be in, you know, as far as non-compliance or ignorance.
Why don't I call the head of the Coles County Planning Department, talk to him briefly, and get back to you guys. How's that?
That'd be great.
That'd be great.
Okay? I know him, we've worked together.
The only other thing I can bring up is, I had asked Jonathan to come give his own presentation, so he should be doing that, Wednesday. And, you know, it is heartening to hear how much is getting accomplished. And Jonathan has, over time, they've been trying to decide, he's been trying to decide if he will still have a role and what that role will be, and it will be fundraising, basically. So you have in front of you this budget request, and this was discussed at our last 708 board meeting. And so I knew that this was going to be presented. But Jeff, am I correct that they can give this to us, but we will use that when we are developing our budget, but.
Our levy.
Our levy, but that does not necessarily mean that we give them a 4.5% increase, correct?
Correct. That would be entirely up to us. When we put it into the big scheme of things.
Okay. And, you know, by that time, Jonathan, we may have a little more knowledge of Jonathan's success and where he's been dedicating his energies.
Okay. We need to start thinking about and dealing with the elected officials' salary forms 180 days before the election, which we have to deal with deciding on salaries for the county clerk, the treasurer, the board members, and chairman. Those are what's due up, as I recall, Augie, is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. And of course, the sheriff is on there because we're able to determine that, but now it's determined by the state.
Right.
And
So-
last time, Jeff gave me the salary survey from the state, other voluntary from other counties, and we took a look at counties that were similar population, and that's how we had come up with, and then we kind of went in the middle, and that's how we came up with those numbers.
So that's something else that we should deal with by the April meeting. So who wants to jump on that one with me?
You have the survey?
Yeah, I'm gonna try to find it when I get home. I don't have it with me.
I think I still have the spreadsheet on.
Maybe I gave that, I could have given that to Nancy.
You could have, Nancy and I talked about that today, about whether, that you and I had talked about now, we could actually participate because we have good data.
Right. We missed the date this year, but we can still use the data that we have from the 18 or 19 counties that participate.
Yeah.
Pick out the ones that are closest to our size and then take a look at it.
Yeah. And I'm pretty sure I already have the ones that we used the last time, so that would make life easier.
Was there any other agenda item that I've forgotten that we should discuss?
Township assessment fee.
Yes, that's correct. Dina will be here to talk about it. She will not be?
No, she was here at our last study session, and
Oh.
pretty well explained that. That's what she told me the other day. And so the resolution is pretty straightforward.
It's
And-
basically per parcel,
Yeah,
and it's got a 3% escalator every year thereafter.
which we did not have.
Looked like before, it hadn't been changed for
It's
years.
been years since it's been changed, so now she's got it increased with an escalator in it. Annual.
So this was the one where she said if the township assessor doesn't do their portion, the county can add a fee onto the tax bill. Is that, am I remembering that correct? Is that the thing? So
That's
this
what my
is-
understanding
This
is.
is only if the township assessor doesn't do their portion of it.
Yeah, we can't assess that, if we're, under other circumstances.
Right, this $8.60 per parcel isn't just randomly getting added on, it's if the township doesn't meet their assessment, okay.
So we don't bill the township, we bill the landowner. We bill the township.
They have their own levy for that if they're using it.
Is this the multi-township assessors that, or is it different?
Yeah, yes.
So if they don't do it and we have to do it, then we charge that?
Correct.
Okay,
Yes,
got it, I
per
understand.
parcel,
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
and then 3% every year.
Yeah.
But that fee, sorry, I'm asking again, the fee gets charged to the township and the township writes a check to the assessors.
Correct, it
correct.
says the county board will bill the township
Gotcha.
$8.60 per parcel for all property classes.
Yes, it is not billed to the taxpayer. But
Directly.
Direct.
Do we do any now? I mean, how many of them do we do?
I couldn't tell
I
you.
think Alexis does
Alexis does most of
most
them.
of them.
We've got one township that,
There was one township that was
It's
kind
kind
of
of-
struggling with.
Okay.
Well, if they wanted to, but they haven't stepped up.
Pam Julian
Yeah, she does up Shiloh,
does,
one of the townships up there.
yeah.
she's the assistant now, though, isn't she?
I think you're
And
right,
then Sims is the one we're working with.
yeah, only, I'm not sure.
I
there's
don't know
work
whether
being
that's
done.
the right way to put it, but,
Are they-
There was interest in
Do they
it.
have anybody doing it yet?
yeah, supposedly they
At
have
that
somebody
time,
who is not qualified to actually do the assessors, but is collecting the data so that they turn that over to Dina and her folks, and then they finish it up. It's tenuous how it's working, we'll see how it works.
and supposedly this person's gonna get the training that has not done so.
Correct.
Okay, training's pretty tough, if I remember right.
Who's the new gal? The assessor's office?
Kenzie,
Kenzie, passed her first set 100%.
did she?
Wow.
Yeah,
Oh,
she
that's
found
great.
out today, yeah, she's doing great. So,
It's because she's a Chris Manning.
so. All right. I think we beat the horse. He's laying out there, I think he's still breathing, but anything else that we need to do? Do we need a closed session for any reason? All right. Yes, sir.
I make a motion.
I wanted to thank Philip again for hanging with us as much as he does. We appreciate it. And I accept your motion, Andy, and Russ a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay. We are adjourned. Thank you all.
State's attorney's got a form to pass out to you.
If you want.
Yeah, I've got it at home, I think, yeah.